Welcome to today's story, Voices in the Dark. This is a story full of mystery, secrets, and lost love. Listen carefully, and you will follow Carl's journey through fear, sadness, and hope. Chapter 1. Meeting Again. It was lunchtime. I had been in the Jolly Sailor pub in West London for about half an hour when I noticed a man sitting alone in a corner. I didn't know his name, but I was sure I had seen him before. His hair was grey, and he was staring out of the window at the River Thames. I don't usually go to pubs at lunchtime, but it was the birthday of one of the journalists from work. There were 4 of us together. I asked if anyone knew the man in the corner. They looked across, but none of them recognized him. For some reason I kept watching him, trying to remember who he was. When we were about to leave and return to the office, the man turned and looked directly at me. I could see that he knew me because he smiled. Who was he? Then I realized it was someone I had been at university with 5 years earlier. I couldn't think of his name straight away. He looked much older. He began to rise from his chair, and I walked towards him. As I got closer, the name came back to me. "Carl," I said. "Good to see you. What brings you here?" I held out my hand. "John, what a surprise. It's been years." He shook my hand, then put both hands on my arms. "It's so good to see you. You're the first person from university I've met in ages. Those were good times, weren't they?" It was clear he was glad to see me, but he didn't know what to say at first. He looked very different from the lively student I remembered. We were the same age, but he seemed much older. His hair was graying, his face looked worried, and he was thinner than before. Carl pointed to the chair he had left. "Let's sit down," he said. "I'll get you a drink." I should have gone back to work, but Carl had been a close friend. We had shared a lot of fun at university. I couldn't refuse. "All right," I said. "Okay." I told my workmates I would join them later. They left, and I waited while Carl bought 2 drinks. I still found it hard to believe this was the same man I once knew. He looked pale and weak. Had something happened to him? Maybe he had been ill, I thought. As a journalist, I usually ask questions. But when Carl returned with the drinks, I said nothing about his appearance. "So, Carl," I began, "I've been trying to remember the last time we saw each other. I think it was at your wedding. That was quite a day, wasn't it?" Carl only nodded and gave a sad smile. Unsure what else to say, I kept talking. "Strange that we haven't met since then," I said. "How's Linda? Do you have children yet?" Carl's smile disappeared, and he looked at me strangely. I knew at once I had asked the wrong thing, but I had to mention Linda. She had studied with us, and she was beautiful. We had all been close friends and spent a lot of time together at university. Linda was always fun. Carl, on the other hand, had been serious. He studied hard and got good results. When I asked him to go out in the evening, he often refused because he had too much work. I thought Linda would get bored with him. Sometimes Linda and I went out together while Carl stayed with his books. But she must have admired his seriousness, because a year after graduation, Carl and Linda married. Their wedding was wonderful, and they both looked so happy. They were deeply in love. Had something gone wrong in their marriage? Something must have changed, but I didn't dare ask. Carl looked at me more seriously now. He seemed unhappy. He was dressed in a suit but without a tie, and I wanted to ask if he was still working. I didn't ask, and instead I began telling him about my last few years. I explained how hard it had been to find work after university. "You know, Carl, I never managed to study the way you did, and when I had to look for work it was difficult. For a couple of years I worked on small local papers. I even spent 2 years in Devon. Beautiful place, but very quiet. I thought he might be interested in hearing how I eventually moved on to a large national paper, but he wasn't listening. His eyes stayed on the river outside. So about 6 months ago, I decided to move to London. There was nothing keeping me in Devon. No family, you know, and I still haven't found a girl who wants to marry me. Maybe I never will, I said with a laugh. At last, Carl seemed to pay attention. Don't work too hard if you ever do marry, Carl said quietly. I worked too much, and it destroyed my marriage. Oh no, I said. What happened, Carl? You don't look very happy. Where's Linda? Happy? You're right, John. No, I'm not happy, and I don't think I ever will be again. He stopped and stared out at the river. He drained his beer and added, But you don't want to hear my story. But of course I did. I was a journalist. I lived for stories. And this was Carl's story, my friend's story, and Linda's too. I wanted to know. Tell me what happened with you and Linda, I said. He looked at me for a moment to see if I was serious, then began. When Linda said yes to marrying me, I thought I had everything. Life was perfect. I quickly found a good job in London after university. It was hard work. I worked most weekends, and for the first 2 years we didn't take a holiday. But the pay was good, and soon we could buy a flat. Linda had her friends and seemed to like her job too. We enjoyed the same things, I thought, and I hoped soon I'd have more free time to spend together. He paused for a moment. It was Linda's idea to buy the house near the sea. It was to be a weekend place for us. She loved it. Now I see why, he said with a bitter laugh. Linda said London was dirty and noisy and the flat was dull. You remember Linda, John? If she disliked something, she always said it was boring. He stopped again, then spoke in an angry voice. I wish I had never seen that house. Anyway, John, you don't need to listen to all this. I felt uneasy. This was not the Carl I used to know. I glanced at my watch. It was almost 2. I had to return to work, but I also wanted to hear the rest of his story. I'm sorry, Carl. I'd really like to listen, but I must go back now. Why don't we meet tomorrow evening instead? We agreed to meet the next night at a quieter pub we both knew near my home. I thought Carl might find it easier to talk there. I left work late the following evening, and when I arrived at the pub, Carl was already waiting in a corner, facing away from the door. I went over, and he stood up quickly, looking nervous. I'm glad you came, he said. I thought maybe you wouldn't. Of course I came, I told him. Sit down, and I'll get the beers. When I returned, he said, Thanks for coming. Since I saw you yesterday, I haven't been able to do anything. I couldn't sleep last night. He looked exhausted. And because you know Linda and you're a friend, Carl began. Well, Carl, I said, please tell me. I hate seeing you like this. What happened to Linda? What happened between you two? Chapter 2. Waiting for Linda. Carl looked into my eyes and began his story. This is what he told me. 3 years earlier, Linda decided she wanted a holiday house near the sea. She said we could go there for weekends whenever we liked. I thought it was a good idea to escape our busy life in London. Linda started searching, and after a few months she found a house in East Anglia, in a small village called Little Morton. You've probably never heard of it. It's only a handful of houses, a church, and a pub by the beach. That's all. I will always remember our wedding day. Linda looked beautiful, and we were both so happy. We thought we had everything. Linda worked for a small company in southeast London, and my job was going well. I worked long hours, often at weekends, but it was well paid and interesting. Linda didn't seem to mind, and the flat was often full of her friends. Sometimes I had to say, Linda, let's just have a quiet evening. "You're so boring, Carl," she would answer. "You remember how lively she was, don't you, John? She loved being around people. But because of my job, I had to go to bed early. I was up at 6 and left home by 7. Life was good for us. We always had enough money, and Linda could buy what she wanted. For the first 2 years, we didn't even take a holiday. So Linda bought the house and began going down every weekend to make it look nice. I went when I could, but my work got busier and it was harder to refuse new tasks. And with both the London flat and the house by the sea, we needed the money. Sometimes she went with one of her friends. When she returned, she looked healthy and cheerful. It was good for her, and I thought it was good for me too. I could keep working. Or at least I thought so. When the house was finally ready, Linda wanted me to come down and see how lovely it looked. But I had to attend an important meeting in Paris. For weeks after that, Linda was upset with me. Then one evening, she didn't come home. She phoned to say she was staying at her friend Melissa's. "Melissa and I are going to the cinema. You're always working late anyway." It was true. I often came home late and even brought work back. There just wasn't enough time. Linda didn't see how hard my job had become. But I didn't realize how unhappy she was either. She stayed away for the next 3 nights. Each day she phoned to say she was busy with Melissa. I was angry, but what could I do? I only wanted her back. I decided I must change. I needed to work less and spend more time with her. On Friday morning, I called Melissa's house. She answered the phone. "Hello, Carl. Want to speak to Linda?" she asked. "Yes, please, Melissa. You really should give more time to your wife. You always put work before her." I wasn't expecting that from Melissa. I said nothing. She passed the phone to Linda. "What is it, Carl? I'm in a rush. I'm already late for work." Her voice was flat. I thought quickly. What could I say to bring her home? "Darling, we need to talk. I'm sorry for not spending enough time with you. I promise I'll change. Look, what about this weekend? Let's go to the seaside house together." I hoped she would agree. She didn't answer right away. "All right, Carl. If you want to go, that's fine." I was so glad she said yes, but then she added, "I'm going to the office party tonight. I'll meet you at the house." I wasn't happy she couldn't come with me. I wanted to show her during the journey how much I loved her. I didn't know it was already too late. "Okay, Linda, that's fine. Will you take the train? I'll meet you at the station. Call me at the pub." We didn't have a phone in the house. "Fine. See you then," she said. We agreed she would ring the pub to tell me which train she was on. For the first time in months, I left work early and drove to Little Morton. On the way, I stopped to buy a bottle of champagne. Linda loved champagne. I preferred beer, but this weekend was for her. I arrived in the afternoon. It was late October and already growing dark. I parked by the house. The ground was wet, and I saw that another car had been there. I didn't like someone else using our parking space. I unlocked the door and went inside. Upstairs in the bedroom, I found Linda's clothes and shoes. Clearly it felt like home to her. I went to the kitchen and looked out at the sea. It was grey, and the sky was a dull white. Still, I thought we could enjoy a walk along the beach. I put the champagne in the fridge. Linda hadn't emptied it when she last left 3 weeks earlier. There were eggs, cheese, and other things. I poured out 2 bottles of milk, expecting a bad smell, but they were fine. Strange, I thought. Maybe Linda had been down again recently. I made tea and sat on the sofa. The house was the same as before, with no phone or television. I liked the quiet when we were away from London. I checked my watch. It was 5:30. Linda was probably at the office party by now. I picked up a newspaper lying on the sofa. It felt odd reading old news. One story caught my eye. The body of a woman or part of it had been found in the river Deben near Woodbridge. She had been dead for some weeks. The report said she had a lover, and the police were looking for him. I knew that river. I had been there once with Linda after shopping. I pictured the woman lying in the water. I put the paper down. It made me uneasy. I checked the date. It was from yesterday. That was odd. Maybe Linda had asked someone to watch the house. That would also explain the car marks outside. I told myself I'd ask her later, and decided it was time to wait for her call at the pub. I put on my jacket and drove to the only pub in the village, the Ancient Mariner. It was an ugly building standing alone at the end of the street. The weather was cold, with a strong wind, and as I neared the pub, rain began to fall. Inside, a fire was burning and people were talking and laughing. I felt better straight away. For some reason, the house and the gloomy weather had made me uneasy. I went to the bar and asked for a small whiskey with water. "You're not from around here, are you?" the woman said with a smile, handing me the drink. "Yes. Well, I've been here before. My wife and I bought a house nearby. She comes often. In fact, she'll call me here tonight. She's coming down by train, and I'll collect her." "I see. She hasn't phoned yet, though. Which house did you say?" She looked interested. "It's on the main road, left side as you enter the village." I told her. "Oh, the Parkers' old place? Of course. Does your wife have fair hair?" "Yes, long blonde hair. You've probably seen her." "I think I have. She doesn't come in here, though. I'm Mary Banks. This is my pub." "Nice to meet you. I'm Carl Anderson. I'll tell you when she calls. Are you hungry?" She gave me a menu, and I sat at the bar near the phone. I had dinner and a few drinks, not many since I was driving. I waited by the phone all evening, but Linda never called. Close to 11 the phone rang. I jumped up, but it was a man asking for Mary. I handed her the phone. She sounded angry. "No, he's not here. He hasn't been in all night, and I haven't seen your taxi. You should keep an eye on that brother of yours." She turned to the customers. "Anyone seen Mad Tom tonight?" Nobody had. She passed that on to the caller. 5 minutes later, a man walked in asking if anyone wanted a taxi to the station. He was big, with thick black hair falling over his eyes. His clothes were dirty, and I noticed what looked like dried blood on his face. When he entered, most people went silent. Nobody wanted a taxi. Mary spoke to him quietly. "Your brother's looking for you. He wants his taxi back. You know you shouldn't be driving it." The man said nothing, then turned and left. The pub stayed silent for a moment until the man next to me muttered, "I see Bill's letting his mad brother play taxi again." "It isn't right, Tom driving a taxi," Mary said. "He isn't safe." Then she saw my face. "What's wrong, Mr. Anderson?" "Nothing. Nothing," I answered. But in my mind I saw Linda standing at the station, with Mad Tom waiting outside in his taxi. Chapter 3. Mad Tom. I left the pub quickly. I did not like hearing people talk about dangerous or unstable men. Maybe it was the newspaper story I had read that afternoon, but I began to worry about Linda. Where was she? Was she safe? I decided to go to the station and wait for her. The weather was still bad, and I drove slowly in the dark. There were no street lights and few houses. After a short time, I noticed headlights behind me and looked back. The car passed, and I thought I saw the words "Parker's Taxi" on its side. A cold fear ran through me. I chose to drive home first, in case Linda had come on her own and forgotten to phone. The lights in our house were on, and for a moment I thought she was inside. I hurried to the front door and opened it. Every light in the house burned. I called, "Linda, Linda, are you here?" There was no answer. Running through the sitting room into the kitchen, I heard a car start outside. I looked into the dark and saw tail lights disappearing down the lane. I was sure it was the taxi that had driven past me earlier. It must have been parked on the other side of the road where I had not noticed it. What did that man want with my house? All I could picture was that rough face, and the thought of him driving off towards the station with my Linda inside his cab. I jumped into my car and drove as fast as I dared along the narrow lanes toward the station. The road was unfamiliar, and I was breathing quickly. Finally, I reached Woodbridge. I followed signs and drove through the town to the small car park outside the station. There were no taxis and no cars in the lot. 5 or 6 people were coming down the station steps. "Was that the last train from London?" I asked an older man. "Yes, there aren't any more trains tonight. Where do you want to go?" he asked. "Nowhere. It doesn't matter," I replied. I scanned the station for Linda and waited for several minutes. She was not there. Maybe she had missed the train, or had decided not to travel after all. Could she be angry with me and making me wait? There was nothing I could do about that. I tried calling our flat in London from a public phone by the station, but no one answered. I rang Melissa, but her answer phone picked up. I left a message asking Linda to call me at the pub. I kept telling myself that Linda must still be at the party. She was enjoying herself and had simply lost track of time. Perhaps she had phoned the pub after I left. I did not want to think that anything bad had happened, and I certainly did not want to think about Mad Tom. I felt I needed to speak to someone to calm my fears. I thought of Mary, who had been friendly in the pub. She would know the village and might reassure me. I drove slowly back through town and along the lonely road to Little Morton. There was no other traffic. As I entered the village, our house passed on the left, and its light still shone. But I did not stop. When I reached the Ancient Mariner, it was dark and quiet. I checked my watch. It was midnight. The pub should have been closed and Mary probably asleep. I got out and walked towards the door. A voice called from an upstairs window. "Who's there?" Mary asked. "I'm sorry to bother you so late," I said. "Has my wife called yet?" "No," Mary answered. "She hasn't phoned. It's very late to be ringing now, don't you think?" I nodded. I did not know what else to do. I stood in the rain and nodded again, then said, "Could I ask about that man in the taxi? I know it sounds silly." "Wait a minute, I'll come down," she called. A light went on in the pub, and I heard the lock. Mary opened the door and told me to come in. She led me to her sitting room behind the bar. "Are you sure she hasn't called?" I asked. "No, she hasn't. Have you been to the station?" she asked. "Yes, and she wasn't there. Of course I'm worried. When I left here, Tom Parker was outside my house. I can't be sure, but I think he'd been inside. When I arrived, he drove off quickly. What do you make of that?" My voice was a mixture of fear and anger. "Well, maybe I can explain," Mary said. "Tom Parker, the man who asked about taxis tonight, used to live in the house you bought. They had to leave when their father died. He and his brother had a difficult life. Their mother died when Tom was a baby and it affected him. Later, their father drowned. Tom was with him on the fishing boat and couldn't save him. Tom can't swim. He's always been afraid of water and he's been a little odd ever since. I don't think he would hurt you or your wife, Mr. Anderson. He only looks strange and scares people who don't know him." Mary added. "You're probably right," I said. "I don't know what to think. If only Linda had called to say she wasn't coming." Mary smiled kindly at me. What she said made sense, and I felt a little better. Maybe I should wait until morning. I was exhausted. "Look," Mary said, "why don't you stay here tonight? You can sleep on the sofa, and I'll bring you some blankets." I accepted. I did not want to go back to the empty house. Perhaps I thought I would feel better in the morning. Mary left me on the sofa and went upstairs. I fell asleep almost at once, but my sleep was troubled. I woke several times from terrible dreams. I was running after Linda along the beach. I could almost reach her. Her fair hair and long legs were so close, but she ran toward the sea and I could not hold her. She was drowning, and Mad Tom stood on the sand shouting, "Let her go! Let her go!" Chapter 4. A Voice in the Dark. I woke at 7 the next morning, and it was still dark outside. I knew I couldn't sleep again, and the small sofa was uncomfortable. From upstairs there was no sound. Mary was still asleep. It was too early to ring Linda in London, and she would be cross if I woke her so early. I decided to get up and take a walk on the beach. As quietly as I could, I left the pub. The wind was strong from the sea, and I heard the waves crashing on the stones. At least it wasn't raining. I walked behind the pub, across the car park, through long grass and down to the beach. A little further along, perhaps 100 meters, I noticed a car standing on the sand. There was no road, and I didn't know how it had reached there. It seemed a strange place to leave a car. When I went nearer, I saw it was an old car with flat tires. It probably hadn't been used for a long time. I looked up and down the beach, but nobody was there. Through the dirty glass I could see a man's clothes on the front seat, a shirt, some trousers, and a single black shoe. Had someone slept inside? The lone shoe was odd. Maybe the other was under the seat. I tried the driver's door, but it was locked. Far away I could see the church. I began to walk towards it. It was more than a kilometer, but I walked fast and reached it in less than 15 minutes. I like churches, and the last time Linda and I had come this way, I wanted to go in. Linda had said it was boring, so we hadn't. In fact, the last time I entered a church with Linda was our wedding day. I didn't expect the church to be open so early on a Saturday, but it was. I pushed the heavy wooden door and stepped inside. It was dim, yet there was enough light to make out a big painting on the wall. I could just see a huge whale with a man inside its mouth. I thought it must be Jonah and the whale. I had never seen such a picture in a church before. Suddenly I heard the door open, and I jumped. A voice in the shadows said, "You don't often see a painting like that in God's house, do you?" I knew that voice. No. Is it Jonah and the whale?" I asked. Unsure if I should be there, I added quickly. "Sorry, the door was open, and I thought I could—" The man spoke again. "Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. All I know is you never know what might happen at sea." I looked once more at the whale and the small figure in its mouth. Then I heard the door close at the back. The man was gone. I tried to remember where I had heard his voice before. I no longer wanted to stay. I hurried out and back towards the beach. There was no sign of the man. The sky was still dark, but by 7:30 it was beginning to change color. I thought it was late enough now to try phoning Linda again. It was still difficult to see, but as I walked near the water, I noticed something floating, pushed by the waves. I bent down and picked it up. It was a woman's shoe. For some reason, I instantly thought of the newspaper story about the woman's body found in the River Deben. It was a small yellow shoe with a low heel, the kind Linda often wore. Then I saw the other shoe, higher on the beach, completely dry. It hadn't been in the sea. What troubled me was that the shoes were not old. Someone had thrown them away. In fact, they looked almost new. Whose shoes could they be? I ran back to the Ancient Mariner with the shoes in my hand. The door was open, and Mary was washing glasses. "Morning, Mr. Anderson," she said. "You're up early. Did you sleep well?" She noticed what I carried. "What have you got there?" I set the shoes on the bar. "I found these on the beach. How do you think they got there?" Mary put down the glass and picked up one shoe. "Well, anyone could have—" Then she looked at me. "You don't think they're your wife's, do you?" "I don't know. I don't think so. She's still in London." I wanted Mary to assure me I was right. Of course they couldn't be Linda's, I told myself. But Mary said something that made me more uneasy. "This may not mean much, Mr. Anderson, but the postman came this morning. I told him you stayed here last night and that you bought the Parker house. He said he's seen your wife now and then." "Well, of course he has. She often comes here at weekends." "Yes, but there's more. He said he saw your wife in Woodbridge yesterday evening. He thought she was with someone, but he could be mistaken." "Oh my God, I knew it. Something is wrong. She might be dead already. She could have lost these shoes when I couldn't finish. I looked inside one shoe. Yes, size 4, Linda's size. They must be hers." "Mary," I said, "call the police. I'm going back to the beach." I rushed out and ran down towards the sea. I tried to recall the exact spot where I had found the shoes. Then, in the distance, I saw something lying on the sand about 2 meters from the water. It looked like a body. I ran as fast as I could, my heart repeating, "Oh no, please, Linda, be safe." When I reached it, I saw grey flesh covered with blood. I fell to my knees. I didn't want to look. The smell of fish was strong. Finally, I looked. It was a fish. A huge fish. Tears filled my eyes as I whispered, thank God it's not you, Linda." Then I noticed its head was missing, cut off as if by a knife. I felt sick. Near it lay a man's shoe, stained with blood, the same kind as the shoe I had seen in the old car on the beach. I ran back to the pub. Mary was putting down the phone when I entered. "Mary, whose car is on the beach? There's a shoe inside just like the bloody one I saw." I was speaking too fast, and Mary told me to slow down. "What shoe are you talking about?" "That car belongs to Tom Parker. He doesn't drive it, but he sometimes lives in it. I told you he was odd. He likes being near the sea. Well, I found a fish down there. At first I thought it was my wife. Its head has been cut off, and there's a shoe under it. The same kind as in the old car. Did you call the police?" My voice shook. Mary gently took my arm and sat me down. "Now, Mr. Anderson, you found a headless fish and some shoes that likely belong to poor Tom. That doesn't mean anything has happened to your wife, does it?" She said calmly. "Why don't you ring her in London and see where she is? I'll make you some coffee." I phoned the flat, but no one answered. I called Melissa too, but her answer phone was still on. When Mary returned with coffee, I tried to sound calm. "Mary, I think something has happened to Linda. She isn't in London, and you say she's been seen in Woodbridge. With this strange man living in a car, driving taxis, cutting fish, surely I must act. Do you understand?" She saw my worry. "Go back to your house. I'll call PC Grant in Great Morton. We don't have an officer in Little Morton, but he'll come and find you there." I agreed, and drove back to the house. Chapter 5. The Smell of Death. As I drove back to the house, I tried to convince myself that Linda was there waiting for me. When I turned into the road, I could already see the house. The lights must still be on, though in daylight it was hard to tell. I noticed the empty space where I usually parked, and felt relieved that no one else was there. I opened the door and called Linda's name. There was no reply. Instead, a terrible smell filled the air. I thought it must be food left too long in the fridge. I emptied everything into plastic bags and threw them outside. I poured the milk down the sink. Then I opened all the windows downstairs. The smell was weaker, but still noticeable. A few minutes later, the village policeman arrived. I was glad to see him. "Come in. You must be P.C. Grant. Sorry, I can't offer milk with your coffee. It's gone bad," I said. He gave me a smile. "That's all right. I've just had one. But I thought I noticed a smell." "Oh dear, I'll need to clean the fridge," I answered. He sat on the sofa, and I took a chair. On the table beside him was a photograph of Linda and me, taken soon after our wedding. We looked so happy in it that it almost brought me to tears. I forced myself not to cry in front of him. He picked up the photo. "So this is Mrs. Anderson?" "Yes, taken about 5 years ago. She's beautiful, isn't she?" "Yes, she is," he agreed. "Now what makes you think she might be in trouble?" I told him everything that had happened and showed him the shoes. The one that had been in the sea was now dry, but it looked darker. He studied them closely. "This one smells of fish. You say it was in the water?" He put them back down. "And you believe they belong to your wife?" "They might," I said. "They're her size. She wears size 4, which is quite small." "And you're certain they are hers?" "Not completely," I admitted. "But she owns shoes like them." I could tell he was losing interest. "Well, Mr. Anderson," he said kindly, "you said your wife was going to a party in London last night. You tried phoning, but she wasn't home. I'd say she could be on her way here, don't you think so?" he continued. "And about young Tom Parker, I've known him for years. He doesn't live as we do, but he wouldn't harm anyone. He lost his father, you know, believes he'll return if he waits. It's very sad." He stood up. "I know that," I said quickly, "but I'm sure he's been inside this house. Last night when I came back from the pub, all the lights were on, and he was outside in his car. I hoped this might make him take action." "That isn't right," the policeman admitted. "It was his family's house once, but he has no right to enter now." "I'll speak to him. Make sure you keep your doors locked. All right, I must go." He walked to the door. "I'll take this photo of your wife, if that's fine with you," I agreed, and he slipped it into his pocket. I knew there was no point pressing further. I watched as he rode away on his bicycle. I sat thinking about what I could do next. I could call Linda's parents and ask if they knew anything. If she had gone off with Melissa, perhaps they would know. But I didn't want them to realize there were problems between us. Maybe the policeman was right, and Linda was already on her way here. I thought about phoning Melissa again from the station. If she wasn't there, then perhaps I'd call Linda's parents. But first I needed a bath and fresh clothes. I'd been in the same ones since leaving London. In the kitchen I cleaned the fridge and washed the dirty floor. That wasn't like Linda. She hated dirt. Then I went upstairs to run the bath. The smell was stronger there. In the bathroom I turned on the taps and glanced in the mirror. I looked worn out. The smell was worse than ever, so I opened the window. Then I entered our bedroom. The stench of death hit me. The blankets were pulled up high over the pillow, and there was blood on them. Someone was lying in the bed. The body wasn't moving, not even breathing. It must be dead. My heart raced, and I could hardly breathe. I froze at the door, too frightened to move. Slowly I forced myself to go closer. I knew I had to pull the blankets back. In my mind I pictured Linda's pale body, her eyes open, a sad smile on her lips, dead, gone forever, without explanation. I shut my eyes, grabbed the blankets, and pulled them back quickly. The smell was unbearable. I opened my eyes and saw blood. For one awful moment I thought it was Linda. Then I realized it was the head of a huge fish, grey and bloody. I felt both relief and sickness. Overcome, I began to cry. I threw the covers back over the fish's head and ran from the room. I rushed outside into the garden and vomited. This can't be real, I thought. I'm losing my mind. Shaking and sobbing, I got into my car and drove to the pub. The door was open, and Mary came out as I stopped. I stumbled towards her. "What is it? What's wrong?" she asked, reaching me just as I collapsed. The next thing I knew, men were carrying me inside. They laid me on the sofa while Mary told them to call a doctor. She looked very worried. "No," I said. "Don't call a doctor. There's something in my bed. Someone put a fish head there. I thought it was Linda." I buried my head in my hands. How could they do that? How could they? My whole body shook, and I laughed and cried at the same time. What a terrible, cruel joke, I thought. But Mary picked up the phone. I heard her call a doctor and then the police. Chapter 6. Dead Father. I was still lying on the sofa when the doctor arrived. He asked me a few questions, then placed his hand gently on my shoulder. I felt like a small child. "Mr. Anderson, you need to rest. You're very tired and must sleep. I'll ask Mary to bring you a drink, and I'll leave you some pills. You'll feel better soon. Mary will look after you." He spoke quietly, then stepped outside with Mary. When he had gone, Mary came back with a drink and sat near me. "How are you feeling, Mr. Anderson?" "Please, call me Carl. I don't feel well, but I don't think I'm mad. The doctor thinks I am, doesn't he? What do you think, Mary?" "I don't think you're mad, Carl," she said softly. "But you're very worried about your wife? That makes you feel like everyone is against you." She smiled kindly. "Yes, of course I'm worried. My wife has disappeared. Then you tell me someone saw her. Then there's this strange man. And suddenly I find half a dead fish on the beach and its head in my bed. How would you feel?" I raised my voice angrily. "Shh," said Mary. "Calm down." I lowered my tone but still needed to talk. "I'm sure Tom put it there, but I can't see why. It's a cruel joke. He must hate me." Mary shook her head. "No, I don't think he hates you. I don't believe it has anything to do with you or your wife. The police are searching for him now. I told them what happened, and they'll come here later to speak with you. But right now, you need rest. The doctor gave me these pills. Take one, it will help you sleep." She handed me a small white pill with water. I didn't want to take it, but my head ached, and I knew I needed sleep. When I woke again, it was daylight. I heard voices in the room, Mary and P.C. Grant. I could also hear other sounds from the pub, which was open. Mary came over. "How are you, Carl?" "Better, I think," I said, though my head still hurt. "I must go back to the bar. We're busy now. You two can talk," she said, closing the door behind her. The policeman sat opposite me. "I came to tell you we've picked up Tom Parker. He's at the station. He admitted putting the fish in your bed. To him it wasn't a fish at all, it was his father. His father died at sea. Tom also mentioned his girlfriend returning from the sea. He found the fish on the beach, believed it was his father, and took it to bed. That's his story. Sad, really." "His father? That's insane!" I said. "Why would he think that?" "Tom has always been strange. He believes people lost at sea will come back. He said his father returned, so he put him to bed." This was madness, I thought. But all I cared about was Linda. "What's he done with my wife? You know she was seen in Woodbridge on Friday with someone. Maybe Tom collected her from the station and—" I felt anger rising. P.C. Grant stood, perhaps thinking I was worse than Tom. "I don't know what's happened to your wife, but Tom knows nothing about her." "Did you show him her photograph? What did he say?" "No, I put it on the station wall. If anyone has seen her, they'll tell us. and Tom won't enter your house again. We took some keys from him and want to check if they belong to your house." "He has a key to my house?" I asked in shock. I handed over one of my keys. A minute later he returned. "Yes, it matches." "How did he get it?" "We don't know." "May I look around your house?" "Yes, but I'll come with you," I said, though I felt weak. I stood but sat back down again. "I don't think that's wise," he replied. "Make your calls. I'll deal with the fish head. Relax, you'll probably find Mrs. Anderson safe." He left, and Mary returned. "PC Grant told me about Tom. Try not to worry. I'm making lunch. Then we'll go to your house together. I'll help you clean the bedroom if you like." "That's kind," I said. "But I want to call first. I'll try the flat, then Melissa. Maybe Linda's parents, too. What do you think?" I was so tired I could hardly decide. "Good idea. Use the phone here," Mary said, and went to the kitchen. I called the flat no's answer. Melissa's was the same. Finally, I called Linda's parents. Her mother answered, surprised to hear from me. "Carl, nice to hear from you. How are you?" She clearly didn't know anything. I didn't want to tell her much. "Hi, Joan. I'm at Little Morton, waiting for Linda. She was at a party last night. Did you speak to her yesterday? I phoned the flat, but no one answered. I spoke to her on Wednesday. I'm sorry things aren't great between you. If I can help." She knew about our problems? "Well, it's fine now. We're spending the weekend here. I just wanted to check what train she's catching. I should head to the station. Bye, Joan." I wanted to end quickly. "Oh, I'm glad. Have a nice weekend," she said. She didn't sound convinced, and I regretted calling. Mary brought food, but I couldn't eat. I don't understand why Linda told her mother she wasn't happy, but not me. Then I remembered something PC Grant said. Mary, who was Tom's girlfriend? What happened to her? She was called Jenny. Not really his girlfriend. She loved his brother Bill, who wasn't interested. She spent time with Tom to be near Bill. A few weeks ago she disappeared. They found her body in the river. Yes, I read about that. Her head had been cut off, hadn't it? I thought of the fish head. That's what the newspapers said, but we don't know. Anyway, Tom had nothing to do with it. He was in London with his brother then. Mary didn't want to talk more. "Come on," she said. "Let's clean that bedroom." She drove us to the house. She didn't think I should drive. When we arrived, she told me to stay in the car. "I'll check first." I let her. I hated the idea of smelling that stench or seeing the fish again. Looking at the house, I realized I was beginning to hate it. Mary came back with blankets. "Not too bad. The police must have taken the head. I'll wash these at the pub. Oh, there's a letter for you." She handed it through the window. It was addressed to me in Linda's handwriting. My hands shook as I opened it. "Dear Carl, I'm sorry, but it's over. Please don't try to find me. I am fine. Be happy, love. Linda." I stared at the letter, unable to speak. Mary put the blankets in the back and saw me cover my face. "Carl, what's wrong? Who's it from?" I handed her the letter silently. She read it. "Oh dear, I'm so sorry." I still held the envelope. The postmark caught my eye. "Mary, look. This was sent from Woodbridge. Why was she there if she planned to leave me?" Doubt filled me. "Someone forced her to write this," I said. "It must be Tom. Look what he did to that girl and to the fish. Now he has Linda. She might be dead, like Jenny. My poor Linda, what can I do?" Mary looked at me as if I were losing my mind. But I believed I was right. I thought I had discovered the truth. Chapter 7. She Still Loves Me. Mary and I went back to the police station, and I showed them the letter. They only looked at me with sympathy. "It's always hard when a wife leaves her husband," one of the officers said. I tried to explain that I didn't believe the letter, that a madman had taken her somewhere, but they didn't believe me. They insisted Tom wouldn't do such a thing and told me to go home. That evening I drove back to London. I couldn't stay another moment in that house by the sea. Mary had been very kind and promised to call if she heard anything. I decided I must see Melissa. She was Linda's friend, and surely she would help me find her. I thought she would understand my fears. As I sped along the country roads toward London, I thought about everything that had happened. I couldn't accept that Linda had left me. Yes, we had problems. She disliked how much time I spent at work, but that was only because she wanted more of me. She loved me. I tried to remember the last time she had told me so. When I reached the flat, the first thing I did was call Melissa. I wanted her to go with me to the police and say that Linda would never leave me. "Melissa, is that you? It's Carl." "What is it, Carl?" She sounded unwilling to talk. "It's about Linda. Please believe me, something's happened to her," I said quickly. "What are you talking about? How can you know? She was fine on Friday," she replied. "Of course she was fine on Friday. She went to that party with you, didn't she?" Melissa said nothing, so I went on. "After the party she was coming down to Little Morton, but she never arrived. I thought she'd missed the train. Didn't you get my message?" "Yes, I did, but she wasn't with me," Melissa said flatly. She didn't sound worried at all. Didn't she understand my wife was missing? Possibly with some dangerous man. "For God's sake, Melissa, there's a man in Little Morton, completely mad. He lives in a broken car on the beach. He put a fish head in my bed. He has Linda. I know he has." I thought she would see how serious it was, but I thought I heard her laugh. "Carl, really? Are you the mad one? You know Linda was unhappy with you. That's why she stayed with me. You loved your work, not her. You left her alone too often. She was miserable. I don't know more, but I'm sure you don't need to worry. Now I'm busy, I must go." She hung up. I was furious. Melissa was wrong. She didn't know how much Linda and I loved each other. In the kitchen I made coffee. 2 dirty cups were in the sink. I was certain I hadn't left them there. Had Linda come back to the flat after the party? In the bedroom I opened the wardrobe. Most of her clothes were still at Melissa's, but a yellow dress hung there, a party dress. I remembered the yellow shoes I had found on the beach. I was convinced she had returned to the flat over the weekend. Back in the kitchen, I looked again at the cups. One had lipstick on the rim. The other had sugar in it. But Linda never took sugar in her coffee. I didn't understand. If she had come back, why hadn't she called me? I sat at the table with my coffee when the phone rang. It was Mary. "What is it? Have they found Linda? Is she safe?" I asked so fast I didn't wait for her reply. "Slow down, Carl. Nothing like that. I just thought you'd want to know if there was news. It's just—" "I'm sorry, Mary. It's so hard for me. Linda's friend Melissa won't say anything. She thinks I'm imagining things. Anyway, what have you heard?" "Nothing. I just wanted to check if you were all right." "I'm fine," I lied. I didn't tell her about the coffee cups. "Carl, I think the police are right. I don't believe Tom has anything to do with your wife." "Well, I disagree. He's done something to her," I said sharply. She was silent. My anger grew. "And what's that village policeman doing about it? Tom cut off that fish's head. And how did he get a key to my house?" "I don't know," Mary said. "The house belonged to his family once. Maybe he still had an old key." "It's not his anymore. It's mine and Linda's. He's mad. He belongs in prison." Mary said nothing. Then I realized I was wrong to shout at her. I'm sorry, Mary. You've been so kind. I don't know what to think anymore. That's all right, she said. If you hear anything about Linda, please call me. I have work tomorrow, but I gave her my number at the office, thanked her again, and hung up. That week I went to work, but I couldn't concentrate. I told no one what had happened. They wouldn't understand. I barely slept. Each time the phone rang, I thought it would be Linda, but it never was. And Mary didn't call either. On Thursday, the Great Morton police rang while I was at work. Mr. Anderson, this is PC Grant. We found a body on the beach. As soon as I heard those words, I stopped listening. I pictured Linda's body lying on the stones, the sea washing over her legs, her yellow dress and shoes. She was dead, but still beautiful. My life was over. He's been in the sea a few days. We need to speak with you soon. I suddenly caught the word he's. It's a man's body? I almost shouted, but joy filled me. I nearly laughed until I saw my colleagues staring. Yes, sir. I said it was Tom Parker. Please come to Great Morton soon. We need to ask where you've been for the last few days. Where do you think I've been? At work. I'm at work now. How did you get this number? My voice was rising, and people around me were listening. I wanted to end the call. I'll come as soon as I can. Any other news? No, sir. About Mrs. Anderson. I thought she would be home by now. Well, she isn't, I snapped. If we had been face to face, I might have hit him, and I want to know what you're doing about it. Sorry to hear that. We can discuss your wife as well. I'll expect you soon. Suddenly I felt guilty. What did he mean by, we can discuss your wife as well? Did he suspect me? Did he think I had killed Tom Parker or even Linda? I told my boss I needed 2 days holiday. I said it was a house problem. I couldn't tell him the real reason. He wasn't pleased. Back at the flat, I packed some clothes. I saw the yellow dress again and placed it in the bag, though I wasn't sure why. Maybe Linda would need it. Then I got into the car and drove back to Little Morton. Chapter 8. Too many questions. I reached Little Morton in the early evening. I didn't want to face the police right away, and I didn't want to go alone to the house, so I went into the Ancient Mariner. Mary was busy behind the bar, but after a few minutes she came over to my table. She looked at me and saw from my face that something was wrong. What is it, Carl? Have you heard about Tom? I only learned this morning. The police say he'd been dead for 2 days. Yes, they told me. But did they also say they think I killed him? Did they say they believe I killed my wife too? I grabbed her arm. No, Carl, that can't be true. You must have misunderstood. That's impossible. Mary, you must help me. They want me to answer questions about Tom. Maybe they think I was angry with him because I believed he took Linda. I told them she never came back, and now they might think I killed her because of him. Oh, Mary, what can I do? I'll go with you to the police. I'm sure they don't believe that. Everyone knew Tom was unstable. He killed himself. It must be because of that fish, thinking it was his father. Honestly, I always thought something like this would happen one day. She brought me a whiskey and told me to wait in the car. Her words gave me some comfort, though I was still uneasy. If Linda came back, everything would be fine again, I thought. We drove to the police station in Great Morton without talking much. The village was 6 kilometers away and much larger than Little Morton. Outside the station, a tall, dark man came out as we walked in. Mary greeted him. You know everyone here? I asked. No, but that was Tom Parker's brother, Bill. He lives in Great Morton. It's good he's gone. He's not easy to deal with, and nobody likes him. I turned to look again, but he had already gone. I think I saw a taxi driving away. Later, I wished I had looked more closely. Inside, PC Grant was waiting. Mary had called earlier to say we were coming. He led me to a small room where another policeman was already sitting. Mary had to stay outside. "Sit down, Mr. Anderson. Thank you for coming. We have a few questions," Grant said. Both men sat opposite me across a table. "We want to know where you were from Monday to Wednesday. We also want to know when you last saw Tom Parker." Neither man was smiling. They asked me many questions, and I tried to answer as best I could. I worried because I had been alone for some of the time in London. I expected them to keep me there, but instead Grant stood up. "Thank you, Mr. Anderson. That was useful. We're sorry about the fish problem. We talked to Tom about it. He believed it was his father. When we told him it was only a fish, he said he would go look for his father again. We think he took his brother's boat and went out to sea. Remember, he couldn't swim and was always afraid of the water. It wasn't your fault." I was about to leave when the other policeman said, "There's also the matter of your wife, Mr. Anderson. We need a word about that." I sat again as Grant looked at me. "Mr. Anderson, we know you haven't seen your wife since last week, is that right?" "Yes." "And that she was staying with a friend, but planned to come here on Friday night?" "Yes. A postman in Great Morton says he saw her in Woodbridge that evening, with a man." "Are you sure you didn't see her last weekend?" I knew what they suspected, that I had lost my temper with Linda and harmed her. "No, I didn't see her," I said, trying to stay calm. "She may have been in Woodbridge, but that's only what the postman says. Yes, I got a letter from her posted there on Friday. And in that letter," the second policeman added, "she said she was leaving you. Is that correct?" His tone made me uneasy, as if he doubted everything I said. "She did write that," I admitted. "But she was angry. Are you married?" I asked Grant. "Then you'll know how it can be. Linda stayed with a friend for a few days. Then I called her, and she agreed to come to our house here. I waited, but she never arrived. She was coming, but something stopped her." "Yes, maybe," Grant said. "But why did you go back to London if you thought she was here?" He wrote something down. "I needed to speak to her friend, and I had to work. My job is important, you know." It sounded weak now. Linda had been right. I always put work first. I buried my face in my hands. My life was broken. My wife had left me. A madman had left a fish head in my bed and then died. And now the police thought I had killed her. To my surprise, Grant touched my arm gently. "All right, Mr. Anderson. That's all for now. You can go, but please stay in Little Morton. We'll let you know if we hear anything." Both officers walked me to the door. Mary was waiting outside. "You were in there a long time. Are you all right?" "No, not really. Let's go," I said. As we drove back, I told her what they had asked and said, "I thought they didn't believe me, but they let you go." She reminded me. I nodded. "What will you do now?" she asked. "They said I must stay here a few days. I'll go back to the house." "You can stay at the pub if you want." "No, thank you. I'll go to the house. It's mine, and if Linda returns, I want to be there." We stopped outside the pub. "Will you be all right? I don't like you being there alone. Are you sure?" Mary asked. "I'll be fine. I need sleep. I'll stay on the sofa. See you tomorrow." She waved as I drove on to the house. It was dark. I was glad there were no lights on and no taxi parked outside. I locked my car and looked along the road. Nothing. At that moment I decided I would sell the house. I realized I never really liked it. The countryside was too lonely. Linda would have to agree. Thinking of Linda made me feel suddenly tired and sad. I unlocked the door and stepped inside, reaching for the light switch. Nothing happened. The power was out. Then I thought I saw, in the kitchen doorway, a tall woman with long fair hair. And then she vanished. "Who's there?" I shouted. Was I so tired that I was seeing things? It was dark, and fear gripped me harder than ever before. I heard another noise. Who could it be? Not Tom, he was dead. "Who's there? Who are you?" I cried, rushing into the kitchen, stumbling in the dark. I thought I'll grab a knife or something, and just as I was about to, I saw her. Chapter 9. Whose fault is it? The kitchen wasn't completely dark. A little light came through the window, and I could just see the fridge and the sink. I was starting to think I had gone mad and needed a doctor when something moved. "Who's there? Come out where I can see you!" I almost screamed. Then a tall woman stepped towards me through the shadows. "Carl, it's me," said a voice. It was Linda's voice. I wanted so much to believe it. I reached out and touched her warm body. Falling to my knees, I put my arms around her. "Oh God, Linda, is it you? Have you come back? Thank you, thank you. I knew you would. I knew it." I was filled with happiness. "Yes, Carl, it's me," she said. "I need to talk to you. I shouldn't have—" "No, don't say anything," I interrupted. "I'm just glad you're back. I thought you were dead. I thought I'd never see you again. Nothing else matters now." Tears came to my eyes, and I couldn't move. Linda helped me up. "Let's go into the sitting room." I turned off the lights. I didn't want anyone to see me. She walked slowly to the sofa and sat down. "I must tell you," she began, but I cut her off. "No, Linda, I don't want explanations. I regret not giving more time to our marriage, but you're here now. That's what matters." "Carl, I'm the one who is sorry," she said. "I can't come back. Things have changed. Sit down and let me explain." I sat on the floor near her, wanting to be as close as possible. I could smell a perfume and feel a warmth. For a moment I felt joy, but it didn't last. "You have to listen to me, Carl." Her voice was cold and distant. When she said my name like that, I knew I had no choice. "I don't want to be your wife anymore. I want a divorce. I came here to tell you. I should have told you earlier, but I was afraid of hurting you. After the office party, I did take the train. I was on my way to Little Morton to tell you, but I wasn't strong enough. I got off at Woodbridge. I wrote the letter there. That's when the postman saw me. Things had been bad between us for a long time, and then I met someone else. Now I love him, and I'm going to stay with him. I know it's unfair to you, and I'm sorry." Her words felt like blows. It was too dark to see her face, but I reached out for her. "No, Carl," she said. "Don't touch me. You can't touch me anymore. Let me explain how it happened." "Why, Linda? Why are you leaving me? I love you. We can fix this. You must still love me." "I don't know if I do, Carl. I love someone else now. I've loved him for a long time. I must be with him, not you." She looked out towards the sea. I stayed silent. "It began when I found this house," she said. "This house by the sea means everything to me. I met him the first time I came here. At first, I didn't love him, but he was kind and paid attention to me. You didn't have time to come here with me. Do you remember?" I remembered, and I wished it wasn't true. "Nothing happened for months," Linda continued. "But each time I came, he met me at the station and drove me here. He helped paint the house and choose furniture. He didn't stay with me, but he worked on the house when I went back to London. Why didn't you tell me about him? If I had known, maybe—" My voice broke. I felt tears coming. I don't know why. I didn't love him then, but this house was my escape. I came here to forget life in London. "And to forget me," I said. "Yes, to forget you. I'm sorry." She began to cry. "Then why now? Why did you say you were coming to see me? Do you know what I've been through? I thought I was losing my mind. This Tom, This madman who believed his father was a fish. Was it him you loved? No, of course not. Poor Tom. His family once owned this house. That's why he put the fish head in the bed. He thought it was still his father's house, his father's bed. When he saw the fish, he believed it was his father returned from the sea, that putting it in the bed would bring him back. Poor Tom! He was crazy. The fish must have smelled awful. She laughed. Once I loved her laugh, but now it felt cruel. Don't laugh. It stank, and I thought it was your body. I didn't think it was funny, and now the police suspect me of killing him because they thought he hurt you. I'm sorry, Carl. You're right, it isn't funny. But why think he wanted to harm me? So I told her about the first time I saw Tom, what people in the pub said, about the church, and the yellow shoes in the sea. I thought I left those in London. Linda said, Tom must have taken them. As I spoke, she whispered, oh no, again and again. And now Tom's dead. Linda said, and maybe it's my fault. I don't understand. I said, Tom loved a girl called Jenny. When she drowned weeks ago, he was heartbroken. He spent his time on the beach, staring at the sea, sleeping in that car. Then he started coming to this house, his father's old home. When he saw me, he thought I was Jenny. When I got off the train at Woodbridge, he realized I wasn't her. But he took his brother's taxi and came here to wait. That's when he saw you. He wasn't well. He might even have thought you were his father. Then, when he found the fish, he wanted it to be his father. He was truly mad. In the end, he knew his father wasn't coming back, so he went out to sea. That's when he drowned. Perhaps it's my fault. Do the police know all this? I asked. Not everything. I wanted to tell you first. Now I'll tell them. I'll come with you, I said. No, I'll go alone. Linda walked into the garden. I followed, too shocked to speak. Then I remembered the key. How did Tom get a key to the house? He stole it from Bill. Bill? Yes. Bill Parker is the man I love, Tom's brother. I gave him a key so he could work on the house while I was in London. He's been kind to me. He's very sad about Tom. The faint starlight let me see Linda's sad face. I knew then I was losing her. How long will you stay here? She asked. Why, do you want to live here with him? I asked angrily. Bill has done a lot on this house. It's his too. Of course I'll pay you for it. We walked to the front of the house. I must go, Carl, she said. Bill is waiting for me down the road. I saw a car's lights about 100 meters away. It looked like a taxi. Slowly, I began to understand. Goodbye, Carl. She walked toward the car while I stood alone by the house. I tried to recall the face of the man Mary and I had seen leaving the police station. Tall and dark, but I hadn't seen his face. I don't know how long I stood there. The car drove away long before I moved. Shivering with cold, I went back inside and up to the bedroom. I sat on the bed, holding Linda's yellow dress, crying. I stayed there for a long time until I fell asleep. In the morning, the sun came through the window. I washed my face and looked into the mirror. Staring back at me was an old man with sad eyes and hair turning grey. Chapter 10. The Yellow Dress. After Carl finished his story, I didn't speak for a long time. We sat quietly in the corner of the pub, drinking our beer. It was almost closing time. Carl stared out of the window, lost in thought. I kept thinking about what he had told me. I had questions, but I didn't want to hurt him. He had suffered enough. In the end, it was Carl who spoke again. What are you thinking, John? He asked. Do you think I was a fool to let a woman like Linda leave me? You're right if you do. But what could I have done? I left that day and drove back to London. After what Linda told me, the house no longer felt like mine. I've never gone back to Little Morton since, I replied slowly. No, I don't think you were foolish. She had already made her decision. It was too late. I hoped I hadn't said too much, but Carl only heard what he wanted. Yes, you're right. I should have realized long before. I shouldn't have let her buy that house. That place pulled her away from me. She said she didn't love him at first, didn't she? It was the house and the countryside she cared for. And as for poor Tom, maybe if he hadn't died, Linda might have returned with me. She blamed herself, you know. That's why she stayed, because she felt pity for his brother. I looked at Carl, surprised. Did he really believe this? But he went on. If only I'd made her stay home. That friend of hers, Melissa, she was no good for Linda. I'm sure she spoke badly about me. She probably told Linda to leave. But Linda still loves me, John. I know she does. I'll get her back one day, you'll see. I didn't know how to answer. Maybe Carl didn't want to believe Linda had left because of him. I was worried about my friend. I decided I had to say something. Carl, I'm sorry Linda left you. But it sounds like things weren't right between you for a long time. Maybe it's better to forget her. You're still young. There are plenty of other women. John, you don't understand. You don't know about Linda and me. I told you my story because I thought you would. And all you can say is that she's never coming back. Carl stared into the distance. I don't think even he believed his own words. After a pause, he said, Yes, you're right. It's over. It has been for a while, even though I still think about it. Thank you, John. For what? I asked. For listening. It's helped me. It made me see that I must move on, start over. I didn't notice the problems with Linda. I worked too much and gave her too little time. I made mistakes. I don't work much now. The company let me go. They said I'd changed. We finished our beers. The pub was closing, so we walked outside together. Thanks again for listening, Carl said. Don't mention it. Call me sometime. Let's meet again soon. I gave him my card with my number. Then I watched him walk away. After he turned the corner, the barman came out carrying a bag. Is this yours? He asked. No, I said. Well, it was on the table where you were sitting. He replied, handing it to me. I opened it. Inside was a yellow dress. It belongs to my friend. I said, Thanks. I ran down the street after Carl, but he was gone. I realized then that I didn't know where Carl lived, and I didn't have his phone number. I looked inside the bag again. At the bottom was a pair of small yellow shoes. One of them was dirty. I took the bag home that night. The next day I went back to the pub and gave the barman my name and number. If my friend comes in asking for his bag, please call me at once, I said. But he never called, and I never saw Carl again. At first I thought he might have lost his mind like poor Tom. Then I wondered if he had left the bag in the pub on purpose. Perhaps he had carried the yellow dress and shoes with him everywhere, and leaving them behind was his way of starting again. So I kept them, just in case. Not long ago I got married. My wife and I bought a house in the country. While packing, I found the bag with the dress and shoes. I hadn't seen Carl again, but I hadn't forgotten his sad story. I didn't want to throw the bag away. One day, while cleaning the bedroom, my wife found it. I told her Carl and Linda's story. When she asked why I had kept the bag, I thought for a moment and said, So I never forget how easy it is to lose the things you love. We both laughed, but we knew there was truth in it. Thank you for listening to Voices in the Dark. If you enjoyed this story, please remember to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more emotional English stories. See you in the next story.